Clifford's Fairy Tales, Snow White and the Seven Puppies. Hello, I'm Emily Elizabeth, and this is Clifford, my big red dog. Every night we cuddle up, and my dad tells us a story. My dad loves making Clifford and me the stars of the story. Tonight we are reading Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, there was a princess named Snow White. Snow White was honest, kind, and giving. She lived in a very big castle with her very big puppy, Clifford. They had lots of adventures there. Snow White's wicked stepmother, the queen, lived in castle too. The queen had tricked everyone in the land into thinking she was kind and giving, but Snow White knew the truth. Every evening, the queen asked her magic mirror the same question. Magic mirror in my hand, who is most loved in the land? And every evening the magic mirror gave the same response. You, my queen, you are the most loved person in the land. On this night, the queen asked the mirror her usual question. However, the mirror did not reply with the usual answer. Instead, it showed an image of Snow White and Clifford and said, Snow White is the most loved in the land. This made the queen very angry. I must get rid of the perfect Snow White, she cried. Snow White and Clifford were playing hide and seek when they overheard the queen's plans, so they came up with a plan of their own. Snow White and Clifford would run away. Snow White and Clifford escaped into the woods. The further they walked, the darker the woods became. Even with her friend by her side, Snow White was scared. Just then, they saw a light coming from a house in the distance. Snow White went inside the house and found the mess. There was mud and dirt and fur everywhere. There were 7 tiny unwashed bowls, 7 tiny unmade beds, and 7 tiny chewed up balls. Who lived here? She wondered. Diggy, Spot, Fluffy, Jumpy, Drooly, Fetchy, Tiny, Fluffy, Jumpy, Spot, Drooly, Diggy, Fetchy, Tiny. Clifford took a sniff and let out a friendly owl. He knew who lived here. It was 7 tiny puppies. Hello, I'm Snow White, she said, and this is Clifford. Snow White saw that each dog bowl had a name on it. She studied each pup carefully. Why, you're Fluffy, Jumpy, and Spot, she said, pointing, and you must be Drooly, Diggy, Fetchy, and Tiny. The puppies wagged their tails, happy to have made 2 new friends. Snow White and Clifford needed somewhere to live, and this messy house needed some help, and so Snow White got to work. Tiny. She ran bubble baths for Diggy. She played catch with Fetchy, and she made extra meals for Tiny. Snow White fit right in. Clifford, on the other hand, had a little more trouble. Tiny, Jumpy, Diggy, Drooly. Snow White knew just how to help Clifford fit in. Soon, the house was in order, and Snow White, Clifford, and the puppies became a happy family. Every night, Snow White would tell a bedtime story to Clifford and the 7 puppies. Before she knew it, they were all sound asleep. Jumpy, Drooly, Spot, Tiny, Fetchy, Diggy, Fluffy. Meanwhile, the queen was all alone at the castle. With Snow White gone, I must be the most loved in the land, she thought. Magic mirror in my hand, who is most loved in the land? She asked. The mirror once again showed an image of Snow White. She was surrounded by Clifford and her new puppy friends. Snow White was even more loved than before. The queen was not happy. Early the next morning, Snow White heard a knock at the door. It was an old woman selling apples as red as Clifford's fur. The old lady smiled and offered Snow White her shiniest apple. Just as Snow White raised the apple to her lips, the dogs ran outside. They were barking and growling because they smelled trouble. But Clifford and the puppies were too late. Snow White bit into the apple and she fell to the ground in a magical sleep. Clifford took one sniff and knew who the old woman was. It was the wicked queen in disguise. She pulled out her magic wand, but all that she saw was a stick. He leapt toward the queen and sunk his teeth into the wand. Lightning shot out of the wand and hit Clifford with a jolt. Suddenly, he began to grow, and grow, and grow. Now Clifford was bigger than ever. He let out his biggest, scariest growl. This time the evil queen was scared. She ran away as fast as she could. The puppies gathered around the sleeping Snow White, and Clifford gave her a big slobbery lick. Snow White opened her eyes. True love's kiss had broken the spell. Snow White gave Clifford a big hug, or at least she tried. And the queen, she was never heard from again. The end.